Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 213 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/@2for1studios. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the best place to consume all the content. And if you didn't know, listeners, and let's be honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Daniel, it's 213. Last week, we were greeted by the one and only Dr. Bruce Hutchinson for a retro look at the French Connection. It was nice getting a palate cleanser with like House of the Dragon and Star Wars and Marvel and that kind of stuff. But we're back to talk about I'm not quite sure what episode we ended on House of the Dragon season 2, but ultimately, I think early, but I think we're here just to talk about the season overall and really the finale and
lack thereof.
And then as we go into what to expect in season 3 and season 4, which is confirmed to be the final season of this spinoff of HBO's beloved Game of Thrones. So, Daniel, general thoughts. How did you feel with season 2 overall? And then more importantly, how did you feel with the ending of this finale or season?
Overall, I enjoyed the season. I really pretty much every episode, except maybe the last one, I was pretty glued to the screen. You know what I mean? I thought the acting and the writing were pretty much top notch across the board. There was a few times where I felt like the plot stalled a little bit. You know, it did feel like Damon was doing a lot of the same thing for a few episodes in a row in the ghostly castle thing. So it wasn't perfect. But like I said, every episode I was into the acting, I was into the writing. The pacing was usually pretty good. And then there were some really big standout episodes that were really, really good. I mean, the dragon episodes, I think obviously this season stand out. The first kind of big giant dragon battle where Aegon is injured and his dragon dies, and so does Rhaenys. Was that I believe the aunt. And then later on, of course, the episode where, you know, she finds her other dragon riders, and, you know, that moment where they're standing on the cliff or on the island when Rhaegon and the other guy comes, and, you know, there's these awesome, really cool, amazing moments that felt like, epic. This is awesome. And then, unfortunately, I think the season just went out at just a horrible point at a story and pacing wise. The story was over in an episode that felt like it was the penultimate episode, or even the penultimate episode. I mean, like this season really felt like it was supposed to be 10 episodes. And I think I'd read something about like that it actually was, and that COVID or the strikes interfered in that. But either way, I think the big letdown of this season is that it just ended on a really anticlimactic note. It felt like an episode. It really was just an episode where they're just moving chess pieces around the boards and just getting people over here and prepping this over there. And then there's what now 2-year wait to see the consequences of those things. And I think that's just weird and just a bummer. That's overall. I know I kind of rambled there and gave you a big spiel, but I think that's kind of where I'm at in general.
No, I think everything you said, I just 100% agree with. I think overall, again, this season is a great season of television. Mm-hmm. It's the production design, the acting, the writing is generally pretty great. And it's fun watching it week to week. I do think, you know, season 1 was interesting in comparison to most television shows, and particularly Game of Thrones, where we were jumping from like decades at some points. Like
we changed the main cast got recast halfway through essentially.
Yeah,
You know, what I mean, it's the same
exactly.
characters but new
Yeah.
actors and
I
actresses.
remember when we were talking about the first season, however many years ago that was, two, I guess, in the podcast where we were talking about this felt like a historical record or like
Right.
we're seeing glimpses of a much of an epic story, right? And this
Right.
season's very much different in the way that I feel like obviously much shorter time period, maybe a couple of months,
Right.
um, maybe half a year. I don't know, 100%. It feels longer in some places and shorter in other places.
Well, it did have some classic Game of Thrones like um covering,
New
miles
classic.
and miles and miles in like by
Yeah.
with one cut, or like from one scene, oh, I'm going to go back to Westeros, two scenes later you're there, even though
Yeah.
it's like taking other people along. There's some of that which then you start getting confused. Well, like, I guess maybe she flew so it's faster, or maybe there's more time taking place here. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
they played pretty loose with that, I feel like, in
they
Book of
did. The
Book.
world feels a little smaller when you have both
Yes.
princesses or both wannabe queens, princesses, whatever, arrive at each other's doorsteps. Like,
Yeah.
like just the next scene, it's like, man, that's a big journey in itself.
And
And
very
it's
safely, like just
very
like with one
safely.
bodyguard
Yeah.
each. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like just
Yeah.
like it's like when you start thinking about that, you're like, oh, like interesting.
Yeah.
That is like,
But those are kind of the things though that you can ultimately forgive when like
yes,
those other things are kind of firing. I think, when Game of Thrones, that was a big deal towards this back half of those seasons was because the other things weren't really working. They were sacrificing story for basically fast travel. And so,
right.
those issues are here too. But ultimately, I think like you're like what you said, this felt like just the tee up for something bigger. I know that the way the showrunners have talked was that the last episode isn't, like you said, moving chess pieces around. But one thing I'm kind of confused about or just don't understand the method behind the madness, maybe it's just budgets are just getting even crazier, is like Game of Thrones seasons used to be 10 episodes a season, and now they're 8 episodes. And
Was
it
the
really,
season 1 8?
I think it was also 8. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 9 or 10. Can you look that up for me?
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of weird that, we're like, I don't know. We're just in this weird state of television where these streamers are like, we
There's
know.
10 episodes of season 1. And
Okay, well,
I do think I need to look into it, but I am pretty sure that like there was something, it may have had to do with not just the strikes, but also David Zaslav being David Zaslav, but essentially that like they had 8 of the 10 scripts written at a certain point, and then they were like, when the strike was over, they wanted to come back and finish the last 2, and they were told they couldn't, kind of
hmm,
thing, which
yeah,
would absolutely be a
it
David
tracks.
Zaslav like decision,
It
right?
tracks. Yeah, so
Yeah.
don't spend another $20 million for the last episodes. Yeah, it
Right.
tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is
No,
what
just end
happens.
it there.
You start having conversations where, hey, you're not in the zeitgeist for 2 more weeks, which maybe is not worth $20 million. But then also you're having conversations now where I think the general impression is that people are not super thrilled with the end of the season, which hurts the overall brand. I think most fans, if you're in it, you're going to be coming back for season 3. So maybe that's a move. Maybe Saslov is correct. Maybe it was a smart move for him, even with the backlash. But what I'm trying to say is I don't know why showrunners. It used to be this thing where you could pump out 24 episodes in a year, and I get it. We're
Yeah.
visual effects. We're shooting all these crazy things now, but 24 hour long episodes a year, and then they would hit it like fall, and they would go all the way to May, and then they hit it at fall again. Again, I understand that they're
Yeah.
different levels of quality, but also I know that it can be done, and I don't know why they're doing this 2 year thing. I think they're at the end of the day, it's a separate conversation. This is why people churn while they get rid of their streaming services, and why also
Right. Yeah.
they're just not keeping up with demand. Like it's like Netflix. Like I can't really think of a whole lot of Netflix shows right now other than Stranger Things. It's like, man, if that come on, I would have to
Mm,
watch it also. What I'm saying? Like that's like
mm.
that's their thing. So back to the show to kind of go back to you. I think I was most disappointed in the lack of Damon, and his storyline was very slow. And I know they're really wanting you to believe that shit at the end. I'm not sure I needed 5 or 6 episodes of him seeing ghosts throughout the whole castle and all that
I
kind of
agree.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I understand them trying to connect it to like the Song of Fire and Ice, but I don't think fans enjoy where we ended with that show. And I think it'd be behoove everyone, including the showrunners, to not reference it as much as they do. Like, oh, we're building up towards Jon Snow not killing.
I mean, the thing is, it's so difficult because like
Yeah, I get
I
it.
agree with you, but at the same time, like I'm trying to think of like to me this would be like the equivalent of like if we're watching a Lord of the Rings prequel and they're not going to mention anything to do with the ring because the Lord of the Rings trilogy wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. Like in that reality, it's like how
I
can
get
you
it.
like this is the most important kind of thing that happens in the history of this world. This event, winter is coming, or whatever, is supposed to be this
Sure.
like everything is about this kind of like this is the big event of this whole existence, this whole
Well,
reality. And so
it,
I get that you kind of like have to. And
well, they,
I do think
well,
they do it well. Like it looks cool and stuff, but you're right in that it is like just like it ends up being a bummer. It ends up making you feel like, oh yeah, that's okay. And like I honestly, dude, like you know,
well,
there's been some news stories come out this week from like Kit Harington about season 8 and how like they were all so exhausted and how like he was saying and he's
yeah,
like, you know, basically like, hey, he was like saying like, hey, I can look back now and see the problems. He was one of the, you know, he was a part of the group in the beginning, which they had to be because they worked for them, that you know it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's great, we did a great job, you know, we can't, don't listen to the haters or whatever. And now that are a few years later and they're removed from that project, I think they can be more like, okay, yeah, that didn't quite turn out great. Or even he even said things like, I think some of the bold decisions that were made didn't work. And I'm
he was
like,
diplomatic about it. Or,
but still critical, like still like,
yeah,
you know,
well, he
but
can be. It's we're not
exactly.
time, and his shows got kind of canceled, so he can kind of talk
He's
about it.
not exactly. He's not living off their paycheck right now.
Yeah.
But and he was saying, you know, we were also exhausted. We couldn't have done another year or whatever. And so part of me's like, well, you're not exhausted now. We could just David Zaslav, man, you love writing shit off. Can you write off
Sure.
Game of Thrones season 8 and maybe 7? And we'll bring back, we don't have to bring back it. We'll just bring back the core cast that we need to tell a decent story and just do it. And then
Never happened.
I mean, probably not, but like in some ways, like
The only thing that could happen, and they should do it, is a 5, 3, 5, 6, whatever movie series where they're just
a
putting
retelling,
a
like
retelling.
recasting.
Yeah, make it Lord of the Rings and just like but Game of Thrones and fucking don't fuck it up at the end.
I mean, yeah, you're right. It's just it's like
Why
what
not?
what we're seeing, that Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, you know, like
The
stuff
Egg
coming up with,
Night, or is that what it is? The
say
Egg
what?
Night. There's the Egg Night show, which takes place in between this one and Game of Thrones.
I just know it's called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't know if it's Egg Night.
Yeah,
It probably is.
I think he's the Egg Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like it's like I want to be more excited about these things than I think I can be. And it is because it's like this iteration, this, you know, Game of Worlds universe that is HBO has is like cursed. And it has like this like mortal injury that it's like just carrying around and bleeding all over its new clothes and shit. And it's just like, guys,
Yeah.
like I want to like this new stuff you're putting out. It's well done, but like you just like it's always like, I guess what's difficult is like my interest is always going to be hamstrung by that. Like I'm never, and that's, you know, maybe that's just like what it is. I'll never be able to be as into Game of Thrones as I was before the end of the original show. You know what I mean? Like
I
I'll
won't
never
either.
be able to be that invested in it or that like, you know, like excited for it again. And unless they've somehow found a way to fix it, because it's just like, yeah, I mean, it didn't help that it happened at a horrible time and like the world was falling apart, and then Game of Thrones season 8 sucked or whatever. And like, but still, it's just like like remembering the disappointment around that, remembering just like the decisions they made for the character, it wasn't even it's like it wasn't even just execution, like just the ideas just dried up. You know what I mean? And like and I don't know. I'm rambling, but all I have to say is like,
Well, we had just sidebar. I think it was Endgame and the last episode of Game of Thrones the same weekend. So it was. I remember that,
wow,
and it's kind of like
what a
wow,
contrast.
what a contrast. Well,
Yeah.
that brings me to one thing of good about Marvel. Even though they've had their missteps, they're still looking towards the future. Whereas Star Wars is hamstringed by trying to fill in gaps before these blemishes on the property. And I there was hope for me at one point with this show you're talking about with Kid Harington, because I was like, well, maybe there is another Ice King or whatever, and Jon Snow
Well,
has to fight that, and that so it's truly
even
this.
that show alone could have filled in one of the stupid ass plot holes of the show, which
Yep.
was like, why did John get resurrected? And then the obvious choice, well, he's the prince, he's the guy that's supposed to kill the Witch King. He's the prince that was promised.
Yes.
And then he doesn't do it. And so
Well,
I
well, yeah,
guess, no, why did we resurrect
yeah,
him? Whatever God in the world that apparently was
yeah.
aware of all these things.
Well,
Anyway,
let's get back to
I'm
House
sorry.
of the Dragon. So, I mean, my point is, yes, and see, this is what happens, showrunners, is that it becomes which is really fun to talk about. It's fun to shit on your mistakes, by the way, because it's just not because we want you to fail, but because we're fans, we're passionate, and sometimes we think we have better ideas.
And part of it is because you had no reason to fail. Is this is the
It
one where it's
was
like you had
it
the
was a
budget,
layup. It was
you
a layup.
had HBO gave you anything you would have wanted to do this, and then
Yeah.
this is what happened. That's the most frustrating part, I think.
It was a layup, yeah, for sure. But I want to go back to my reasoning. You said that they had to reference it, and they only had to this season because they chose to in season one. They never had to make the reason why he made Rhaenyra the queen because of the prophecy. That was just something they wrote in there. It could have just been, I want you to be the queen because I think you're the best one for the job. And then the show is now about just a Game of Thrones versus a prophecy that now has to be referenced that leads into a show that just at the end of the day, it didn't land, right?
I hear you, but at the same time, if I look at it on paper, the prophecy version is the much more interesting version of events. Just like if you do not consider what comes later, it's like, yeah, that's way cooler. And so I do get it from like hey, we need to tell the best story that is in front of us right now. We just need to tell a great story here. So what's the best version of this
Yeah.
story? I
Well,
get
hey,
it. Like, and especially that fits very Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has prophecies out the ass,
well,
you know, and
as we were talking about
I
last season, it was more interesting when I thought, oh wait, are they trying to fix the end of the show and
sure.
lead into like Jon Snow and like actually what the real prophecy is? Because then it makes sense. But again, they're back. I agree with you. It is more interesting. I agreed with it when we on the last podcast we did about the show a year or two ago. I just think that as it stands, it whatever. It doesn't completely
And
work for me.
here's the thing. If they had done that, but then the finale was just like awesome, I don't think we'd be talking about it right now. I think to me, this is honestly a symptom of like the finale was rough. And so now we start looking back through all of the things
Yeah,
that
I
have been
agree.
like rough and then it's like,
Well,
man, that was not
hopefully,
satisfying. And then you start looking back and like, man, there were some parts of the season that were like, why did they do that?
yeah. I mean,
And so,
this is all about Damon, right? This is I was just trying to make a
yeah,
point about they gave him that reason, gave him the flashbacks, did all the supernatural stuff because Damon's arc this season wasn't as strong. Like there was an episode last season where I think he didn't talk at all, and he just fucking mowed people down, and it was
sure.
like. You're a badass, dude, and you're a Matt,
Yeah.
and, you're Matt Smith, and you can act your ass off. He did great this season too, acting wise,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it didn't serve his character, I thought, in the way that
The
others.
pacing, yeah, the pacing was, I actually like what they did with the character. Like they made him more likable, which is,
Sure, that's
I
hard to
want to
do.
like him. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I like Matt Smith as an actor, so I
yeah,
like watching things where he's rootable for.
yeah.
I agree
Agreed.
that it was clunky to get there. They could have done it more efficiently, for sure. But I can say all that, and at the same time, I do that like that. It did feel like I actually truly believe in his honesty, in his commitment to her at the end of the season because of what he went through, because of all the nightmares, because of You know, the idea of realizing it's so much bigger than he is. They did good work to make that feel like I believed it. It didn't feel forced, but they still could have done it more efficiently and not taken so much goddamn time to do it. So
I agree. I agree. And again, at the end of the day, I like the idea of some of these other plot points of the battle between the two princes at King's Landing, the brother, the tension going there, the evil brother versus the stupid brother. And I love, her Rhaenyra going to like, hey, let's test out our lineage of like who has dragon
yeah,
blood, and like I like all that kind of stuff. And again, every week I was excited to watch the next episode.
yep,
I think you're right. At the end of the day, it was just kind of like, oh, it wouldn't sting so bad if it was even just a year out. It's because it's going to be 2 years out. They hadn't even started, from what we understand, started writing,
yeah.
that's what I don't understand. I'm like, what do you mean
I
what?
mean, why have we not written all 4 seasons already? That is part of me.
But
Like, what
but
if
what?
we know we're that for sure locked in? And I essentially mean that. I mean, I don't know. I guess, yeah,
I mean, I'm sure they're probably editing and finishing things up right up to the wire when the show releases, probably, maybe with 2 years. But I'm assuming you have a staff of writers. I know the showrunner is probably a huge point of like contention in terms of directing the writers and getting things where he wants them to be, those kind of things. But you can give your writers like, here's general thoughts, go play and like bring me something as I'm finishing season 2.
yeah.
And then we can, I don't know, I just feel like there's maybe a more efficient way of doing it. This is coming from somebody who's never been in that system before. But I just it's disappointing for the fans because if you look at the trajectory right now, we won't know the end of the story, Daniel, until 2027.
Yeah.
We're in 2024 right now, and
Maybe they can film 3 and 4 back to back.
they won't. There's no way. I mean, you're also that is 3 more years of like having Max subscribe to potentially,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just and then we are probably going to get the new. Maybe this is the saving grace. We're going to get the new Game of Thrones show next year to kind of fill it. Maybe we'll alternate then.
I think that was the idea, is that eventually they would just have alternating Game of Thrones every year, a
Yeah,
different one.
that kind of makes sense there. But
Yeah,
again,
but you got to
just
actually
the,
do it. So
just the season on its own, I enjoyed it. It's good, even though we haven't got to the place yet where they're starting to fail us narratively with like character decisions. It's more just plot decisions.
yes, the
Yeah, it's more
acting
like
has not dipped at all. The writing, like dialogue wise, has not dipped at all.
yeah,
And I mean, like the performances are just like we're watching amazing.
great.
The actress for Rhaenyra is just, I
Yeah,
think she's
they're great.
incredible. She's
Yeah, they're
she
great.
just delivers so much with like very little. She can say so much with just her facial expressions, and just
Yeah.
in a way that's just really good.
Well, I think also in season 1 you end with I can't think of his name now. But it's the death of her son, and it's like
Yes,
we're
the
dealing with the
one where he
fall.
gets bit.
Yeah, it gets
And
bit on the dragon. We're dealing with the fallout of that in the beginning. We did get some dragon action midway through the season, but it just felt like we were kind of having a slow ramp up and then kind of a slower, like we're building up, and this felt like an in-between season. And I hate when I like shows and movies the best, even though there's like Marvel, like a sequel, whatever. I
yeah,
don't like it when things are not completely tied off or like we don't get some type of narrative completion. I get it, like both women now have like they know their place. Like they've kind of went back and forth in terms of I don't want to do this war. No, I do want to do it. This is what I thought. This is what I thought. And then now we're living in the bed we made.
yeah,
But I just think sometimes like I like beginning, middles, and ends, even with seasons. Like I like
sure.
climaxes and resolutions,
And
but like
again, it felt like this, like whatever I guess like the beginning of season 3 will be, assuming it's they're gonna go through their plan, and Allison's gonna let them in, and she's gonna think that Aegon is there, but he's not gonna be there, and then Rhaenyra might think that it was all a trick to get them to come
right.
in, and maybe Allison seizes the moment and decides to like that feels like that could have happened next episode. And so it just feels like it was obviously that was the finale. That's a finale. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like main characters die in events like that. That's a finale. I mean,
Yeah.
I would not be surprised at all if Allison, I'm sure, and to me, it actually makes perfect sense. Just even where her character is right now, that she's just like, I'm done with it all. I want to retire. She's probably either going to die, or something's going to like happen to her to make her become like a vengeful, like, you know, like just all I want is death kind of character. Like she's about to die or go through that, and I think probably die. I think her dying for kind of her sins in terms of like her part in making this whole mess kind of seems right for her. And so like Allison dying would be like, bam, that's an end of the season kind of moment. You know what I mean? Like that's, again, if that kind of monumentous, like big plot, big, you know, I'm sure would have gotten some great speeches in there. We've got some, you know, great deathbed, you know, soapbox moments or like whatever. And like that just would have been like, wow, that was a great season of House of Dragon. I can't wait for what's next. I can't wait to see the big events of next time. There would have been dragon on dragon battles. I mean, like they could have taken down Rhaegar, you know what I mean? And like, you know, like shit that would have felt like, wow, they built to that this season, but man, it was worth it. Or even it may have made Damon's like whole arc so much more worth it if he like was leading this battle of this army that comes in and storms the castle and takes it back. Then it might be like, wow, okay, I love that was Damon got to be badass again. Maybe it wasn't that bad that they spent so much time. Like in some ways, it does feel like
a version where he does come in and it's like she's taking the castle. It looks like he's taking the castle, but actually, like before it's like he's fixing to kill her. He's like, then he gives his sword up, like, no, I came here to save you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Like,
I know, Daniel.
Like there's a way that like this season ends in such a more epic, awesome shit actually happens.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it was always supposed to.
And it's just like I think if that happens, like half of the stuff we're talking about, we're not talking about in terms of like problems. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
I think one of the dragons that Rhaenyra got, particularly the guy who was kind of like I'd say the least noble of all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, in King's Landing. There's no version where, well, hey, the guy who was like the noblest one that wasn't the black guy, I'm not sure he loves the idea of going back and blowing away the place where his wife lives.
Yeah, sure.
But then even the dunce guy, maybe that's the flip there. But the dunce guy, it's like I can easily see him like getting there and being like, hey, actually, I'm working for the king. I'm actually bad.
There's so many, and obviously they were going somewhere with that, right? Like there was going to be some, like I could see a version where
it's probably the other way around.
The heroic dies really quick, and the dunce guy ends up kind of finding his honor by like being the hero, and that like is the unlikely hero that like changes him, and now he's more noble, you know, or you know, there's so many different versions of anything that can happen. I can see the noble
guy flipping, and then the dunce guy having to step up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so like to protect the noble guy flips to protect his family. Yeah, I mean, there's so many versions of what could go on, and like.
And they might still happen.
And they probably will, but it'll be like, it won't be as cool as if it had happened at the end of this season. It doesn't matter that, like, unless you binge this season right before you watch the next one, which a lot of people will do, but most people won't, it's not going to have the same impact. You've lost momentum. You've lost all the momentum towards this moment just because we're not going to see you.
Well, my question is like the way the season 2 ends, it's like they did the classic. We're going to see every character on a boat going somewhere to fight. And I wonder, like, how are they going to do it? It feels like you almost have to do a fight every episode. Like you have to constantly be in war the entire season. And I just don't see.
But it was all the same battle, kind of, right? They were all heading towards King's Landing.
Well, okay, yeah, but because of like the fast travel and how they can kind of just jump from like
they're just
like, how are you not going to have them? Is the whole season like take place over 2 days of a fight or 3? Like, what's this going to look like? Is it going to be one? I mean, my thing is they're not. Traditionally, they do the penultimate episode is the big battle, right? Battle of the Bastards being the best one of all. And it's like, that's the big battle. It's one big episode. And then the rest of the show is talking. And the talking is so good because the writing's so good. So how are they going to slow down the pace they set up at that last episode I don't know. I'm very
Uh,
curious. I feel
yeah,
like they've got themselves in a pinch, but maybe that means they'll be creative and maybe the battle
sure.
lasts first 2, 3 episodes and it's like there's a winner, and then the remainder of that season is like setting up another Game of Thrones, and last
Yeah,
season like another final switch. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
maybe we're we are halfway through the story and a lot's happened in these first 2 seasons, particularly the first season.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they could be a winner at the mid season, and we could jump 30, 40 years and see what's the next
You're right.
lineage. They could be a totally different
That kind
story.
of sounds interesting, to be honest. If they like deal with the whole Alicent saga and all her kids die or get, I imagine one of them, what I could totally imagine is like one of them survives and runs away. It could be Aegon. He already ran away. And then decades later comes back, with
Yeah.
an army that tries to claim the throne,
And
so
then you could deal with like the Mad King being born, or who's the father of the Mad King, or
right,
whatever.
right,
I mean,
right.
it could really, I could see the end of the show, the Mad King is born, and it's like,
Or
oh,
take
there he
or
is.
takes the throne. I kind that's kind of what I kind of want him to like sit on the throne and smile
If you were
evilly.
a
Like that would
badass,
be
if you were
awesome.
truly a badass, they would need another season, but they could have done the Robert's Rebellion. I mean, like, I don't,
Yeah, they always
they're-
talked to. Didn't they talk about for a long time doing like a prequel movie about that or something? Or like
I'm sure
for
they've
a
talked about
long time they were
everything.
gonna do like a prequel of like Robert and all of them as like young Ned Stark and
Yeah.
all of them as like young. But I'm sure they got canceled.
And so I don't know, like now that I've said that, it's interesting, but it does feel like the show is trying to be Rhaenyra and Allison's story. But what if it, I mean, it's
But
called House of
I mean,
Dragon.
again, it feels like Allison's part is coming to a head. I mean, like
Yeah.
it just feels like her kids like I don't know, like Aegon's got something of an interesting arc left in him, but the other one's just like evil. You know what I mean? And then the daughter's just like this traumatized like sage that can see the future and shit. Um,
If they were smart, they would drop the first 2 episodes and then it'd be like basically a 3 hour movie, and it would end their saga, and then we would do a time jump for the last for
yeah,
the 8 episodes. We're in the back half of the House of the Dragons
yeah.
century. I don't know. Maybe it's a really stupid idea. I don't know.
I think it sounds cool and and kind of like it would set it apart too, in a way that I think is interesting, even from other types of shows. Um,
Yeah.
so I
I
hope
wonder
so.
how much more Damon's kind of got his arc, I feel like he's
He's pretty sorted out. He seems to be like
yeah,
Rhaenyra's just trying to get her throne back, but then she needs to go on like the arc of like what kind of ruler she's gonna be. I mean, like Rhaenyra feels like she could have so much left in her. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
so
What
so
I
so
think that's you're
much.
right though. I think like her getting the throne is more interesting than what kind of ruler she's going to be in the world of Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones, it's in the title. It's
Sure.
getting the throne. I mean, like no one cared
Sure.
about
But that can also be played into whatever the next conflict is. Will
100%.
I
Yeah.
mean, there can be other conflicts that aren't just someone else challenging for the throne kind of shit.
Sure,
A
I
civil
agree.
war, you know what I mean? Like there could be, I don't know. I mean, a civil war usually has that though. I mean, like anyway.
I agree. I mean, I just
I
think that
just
like
and
the
they
story of
probably
Game of
will. That'll
Thrones.
still probably be what it is. Someone else challenging for the throne, but they can still like do different stuff with her and take her character in different directions and
You
stuff
know
like
what?
that.
I think after maybe the first episode should just be the finale, and then the rest of that season and season 4 should just be really boring diplomatic meetings and like peacetime.
But with the same like level of production design and dialogue
Yes. Oh
writing
yeah.
and like
But like trying to like a whole episode trying to figure out how like to get the meat quantity back in the public sphere, like trying to figure
yeah,
out
it
and
almost turns into like a weird sitcom but with no humor.
yeah, no humor at all. Just an hour long of politics, but no violence
Yeah.
and no backstabbing and no conflict.
And then it also becomes like 24 where like every actual minute is an actual minute like in the show.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of saying
Just to have a show take even less time, I'm kidding.
I like the idea of like her planting crops in the first episode, and 10 years pass, and we see the tree is born, and like like then she's picking things off the tree, and then the next season or episode is like her kids picking
Or
things off the tree.
or
This is what we should be writing then.
the show the plot of the show happens, what we watch the show at like 8 o'clock every Sunday night. The plot of the show only ever takes place at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights in the world of Game of Thrones.
I
We're
love it.
only getting whatever happens within that hour of their reality.
But then also when the show ends from airing, you can't ever watch it again. It doesn't. It gets deleted off servers. It's
It
not on
self
tax.
deletes for a tax rebate. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. For a tax rebate. Man, don't give Saslov any ideas, Daniel.
I know.
Oh my God. That tickled me. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, well, clearly we should be writing Game of Thrones.
Yes.
But overall, again, I enjoyed the season. I think it's just a bummer because we want more. We want that big finale, and it feels like we have to wait a really long time. We could be different people by the time this fucking show airs again. 2 years is a long time.
We could be different in different tax brackets. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I may like sort of feeling bad for Allison in 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I might have so much money, I might be like wanting to hold on to power.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I may start siding with the Mad King. Yeah, by then. So we'll see.
exactly. All right. I mean, we could talk more about other things, but I think we
I think
did
we
on
did
this.
it.
I think we did it.
Yeah.
I think we're probably echoing the sentiment everyone else is. I'm not quite sure what our
Doing it
next
better.
episode will be about. But I'm sure it'll be a good one. We're kind of I guess maybe next week. God, there's really nothing to talk about, Daniel. Maybe
Nothing's on right now.
is there? I mean,
Okay. If you catch up with Hacks, we could talk Hacks. Catherine and I finished season 3.
Oh,
Dude, it's
Hacks.
good.
I
Like
have to watch.
I think
I have to
season
rewatch
3.
season one.
You'd have to rewatch season 1. You think?
At least season two. I think I got like halfway.
Season 2 is great, and season 3 may be better. It's really good.
Really?
We really, really like it. It's
Maybe I
so
can get
good.
Kimberly to watch it because she just finished Your Honor,
But
which is
she might like it. It's very girl culture-y, you know what I mean? And women, and like even how women, it deals a lot with like how women were treated over the years, especially like
Yeah.
women comics and women in entertainment and stuff like that.
If all else, I like that idea. I'm not sure I can pull it off. If all else, we can maybe talk about Skeleton Crew as well as all
Will
the
there be a first
D23
episode by then?
announcements. No, that's the fall, but I'm saying the trailer
Oh,
drop.
okay. Yeah.
There's all kinds of trailers have been out, so maybe we can talk about the state of our
I
favorite
have been
properties.
watching a few Batman animated movies and DC animated
Movies. Which
Yeah,
ones? Tell me real quick.
I recently watched the Crisis on Infinite Earth 3-parter.
You watched all three parts.
Okay. Yeah. It wasn't
Yeah.
it was okay. It wasn't great.
Yeah, I had
It
a
was
feeling it would
really
be
did you
okay.
have you watched it?
No, because it's three parts and it's exactly what it's exactly what I thought it'd be, is what you're describing.
Yeah, it's you'd probably enjoy it more than me just because you get more references of it all. But
Probably
it is like at a storytelling, it's just sometimes it just makes some weird decisions where it's like, so for like 60 minutes of this movie, we're only doing this with this character. And then like the last 30 minutes, all this other shit happens. And it's like there's just some weird stuff. And just pacing wise, it didn't need to be 4.5 hours. Let me tell you that. It didn't need to be a 4.5 hour story. It was not enough in there for 4.5 hours. Anyway, but then I also watched Batman Doom. Doom Comes to Gotham. Have you seen that thing? It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
its own thing. It's like
Yeah.
a complete reimagining of the universe, but with like gothic horror.
Oh yeah, I think you're talking about Gotham by Gaslight. Not Gaslight. You're talking-
No, that's
It's
a
called
different
Doom?
one. It's pretty recent. Like Doom Comes to Gotham. It's like a complete reimagining.
Oh yes, yeah. It's yes, the Doom. Okay, the movie is called The Doom That Came to Gotham.
Doom that
Okay.
came to Gotham. Okay, yeah.
They were calling it Batman Doom, and I was like, "What is this movie?" Okay, yes, there's one called Batman. I think it's called Batman Doom, also, and it's like I know the poster.
I think so too. I think I've seen that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
that's why you're confused.
Um,
Okay, so
But
this one
that's
is,
just like Apocalypse, I think, or something. I
yes,
don't know.
this makes sense. Yeah,
That
I
one's
also
interesting.
haven't watched this one. Yeah.
Huh?
I also have not watched this one either.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's okay. It's not the best.
It's my
I would say.
Manola. Yeah, it makes sense. The
Let me see
best.
what other ones I watched.
I never watched the interactive version of Under the Red Hood, but the original Under the Red Hood.
Interactive version.
There's an interactive version where you basically choose, because like in the comic, you choose people called in and chose whether Robin got killed or not. And he got killed.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah,
But
and everyone
there's an
hated him, so
interactive
they got killed. So he got killed.
there's an interactive version that came out recently that you get to kind of pick the plot of the movie, which I think is not my thing.
So you can.
Kill him or not kill him, kind of
Okay.
thing.
Oh,
I-
and then Batman Hush.
That
Watch
one's
Batman Hush.
interesting because it's different than the comic book. And the comic book is considered one of the best of all time. And they change, and the bad guy at the end of the movie is
It's Riddler.
the Riddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really strange. Who's the bad guy in the comic?
Hush.
It's just a guy named Hush. It's his own bad guy.
Riddler still is involved in it, but
Yeah.
it is ultimately not. It doesn't play out the way it plays out like in the movie. But I remember watching it and going like, "Oh, okay." You should
Yeah.
watch that. And the classic one is Batman, The Dark Knight Returns.
I've seen
It,
it.
both of them. It is a
Yeah,
pretty
oh,
good.
that one's amazing. I mean that's the one that feels like that's very much what Zack Snyder was pulling a lot from for Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, it was. But definitely that one and Batman Year One's okay to watch.
I've seen it. I like Batman Year One. I've seen a lot of the older, like I've seen like
Have you seen the last Halloween recently come out? I say recently.
I have not though. Is
Should
that one
watch
good?
that. It's 2 parts. Yeah. It's. I think I remember watching the first,
Or is it the long Halloween or the last Halloween?
the long Halloween. Yeah, and I said last.
There was that the Killing Joke. That's the one that wasn't any good, right?
I didn't love it. I didn't love the art style. It's so weird to me. Like when they should just make the art styles exactly like the comic book it's based off of. It's weird. Like
Yeah.
when they do weird. Also super weird too when they're like doing fucking like there's the Court of Owls one where they just like completely butcher it and it's like they're trying to fit it into this stupid universe they've created. And I'm like,
There's a Court of Owls movie.
yeah, it's fucking lame. I think they've
Mm.
ruined it. I haven't seen Batman Soul the Dragon. I want to. I have
yeah.
seen Man of Tomorrow. It's okay. I haven't watched Red Sun, but I want to because it's based off the really famous comic book where
That's the Superman is born in Russia.
yeah. I think I've seen Bloodlines. I've seen most of these.
Oh, Batman versus Robin is when they did Court of Owls, I guess.
Yeah,
movie.
it's so weird to me they did Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths because the Justice League not World, it was
It came out before that. It was supposed to be a prequel to that, right?
well, there's like they kind of ended this universe in the DC, the DC AMU is what it's called, the Apocalypse Wars in 2020. That was kind of like the end of that universe, and right now we're in the Tomorrowverse.
But these are all the ones after that, right?
Yeah, but
I started World. I was not enjoying World. It was the art style was not my favorite thing either.
It's just kind of like, why are they
Also, Jensen Ackles is Batman. I don't love his Batman voice.
okay,
I don't think.
yeah.
I don't
Everyone's
think
pushing for him for
it sounds like forced low grumble, not like naturally low grumble. And,
Yeah.
I like
How do you feel
naturally low
about-
grumble.
the Cape Crusader.
We really loved it. Me and Kat watched
We
the
watched
whole
the
thing. Yeah,
I watched the
yeah.
first 3 episodes, and
It's
I like
interesting.
it.
It makes some choices later. I mean, did you get what was the last one?
I maybe only got 2 in, but I remember Clayface. I remember the Penguin.
Penguin's
Like
a
a-
girl. This
Yeah,
time.
I remember one more. I like the Clayface one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I just
It's-
like
It's a very realistic Batman. Like it's all very down to earth and like that. They do some different things. I mean, like they do some like there's some characters they don't introduce and some that they do that just surprised me that they went that route. Usually don't see one without the other in that order. And then like they do some they are just making, they're not just doing not everything's just the atypical Batman story. They're doing it their own way in some ways, I guess. But we enjoyed it, man. It was a good time. We had fun watching it.
I don't know. I need to. Some of them I really love, and some of them like these are just not very good. But I guess they're redoing Watchmen chapter 1. I saw the trailer for that, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I feel like we're just redoing a lot of the same stuff, and I'm kind of like, man, like you don't really have to. Like the movie of Watchmen is pretty fucking close, other than the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm curious to see what they keep doing.
Yeah.
I need to check out. It's very interesting to me that you watch these. I need to
I just
probably.
sometimes, dude, sometimes I get on a kick. I've been playing Arkham City too, or Arkham Knight too.
Yeah.
I'm farther than I was before now.
Well, Matt actually texted me. He's been rewatching all the Batman movies. I think because of Cape
The
Crusader,
the cartoons or
the live action, and he
live
watched
action, yeah.
the Lego Batman movie. Fucking rules, dude.
Dude,
Uh,
it's one of our it's one
dude,
of
it's
Reese's
so
favorite
good.
movies, and it's one of the Batman humor is so good in it.
It's amazing, and
It's like it's seriously the best.
I
We
hate you, Joker. Yeah, it's amazing.
adore, and the casting is so good. Is it Channing Tatum that plays Superman in Lego Batman?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
fucking
yes.
Jonah Hill plays Green Lantern. Yeah,
Yes.
they're always shitting on my boy.
And a
then, yeah,
great,
well,
honestly, a great casting of Joker with Zach Galifianakis. Like,
amazing.
he doesn't have like the body type, I guess, to do it in live action, but like he has the personality absolutely to do it, and he does great.
I thought he did great, and I don't know. I wish it made more money because I would have loved a sequel to that.
They did a sequel to didn't they? Do Lego Batman 2?
Nope, nope, nope.
Okay.
Not in my universe. So anyway, yeah, I've been also on this like super. I mean, I'm always on a superhero kick, but I have been earning or yearning for something. I restarted Spider-Man 2, the game, the other day, and played the beginning of it.
Okay.
I have been feeling the pull to Batman as well. I think because of Cape Crusader.
I think it's it's similar to me too. Plus a little bit of the Deadpool, movie, getting a little bit of my superhero feet wet again, like thinking about stuff I am excited about for the future. I have too. I was kind of like looking around and like just kind of I eventually picked up Arkham Knight, but I was looking around at like I was seeing if I could get the old like Marvel what's the brawlers that you'd walk around, the isometric Ultimate Alliance games. I was seeing if I could download them digitally. You can play them on Xbox, but you can't buy them digitally.
The third one is on the Switch.
Yeah,
so
only, which is weird.
Exclusive.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't like. I mean, like, I don't want to play it on my Switch. I want to play it on Xbox.
Well, if you like fighters, you should get Marvel vs. Capcom. Infinite wasn't very good.
But I wanted something. I wanted something lore. I didn't want Capcom. I just want Marvel. I wanted to play in the Marvel universe or the DC universe. And listen, Arkham Knight. For a while there, I was a little like, I don't like it as much as City, and I still think that it's probably not as tight of a game as City. But now that I've gotten past most of the like mandatory Batmobile parts, and I feel pretty good with the Batmobile now, I am having fun just exploring the city and just looking for Easter eggs. And I haven't beat it. No,
you don't know the end.
I'm like 80. I do know the ending of it. I know what it is, but I've just known about it. And I know I'm nowhere ever. I'm not collecting a single Riddler trophy because fuck that. So I know I'm not even gonna get close to the like, true ending. But I know what it is. So
gotcha. Yeah, I never played it with like the extra boss battles. You have to.
I did already beat all those. The DLC.
Yeah. I never did all that, so I think
some of them were good. Some of them were really short. Like the Killer Croc one was maybe like a 30-minute DLC.
Dude,
it was an okay boss battle. But
if you want a superhero story, man, 3 amazing superhero stories: Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2. Holy shit!
Have a PS5. I would love to.
3 of those, I cried during them.
I've beaten the first one. I've beaten Spider-Man.
Yeah, I cried during that one.
Those would be the games I would be playing right now if I had the means.
Dude,
so
there's a moment in Spider-Man 2 where like you're not doing a goddamn thing that's super heroic. You're just like doing normal Peter Parker shit that I was just like, this is the best stuff I've ever done in a video game. I was just like, there's also one side mission that it just like, if you don't smile during that side mission, it's the best side mission of all time, video game to me. If you don't smile during it, you're dead inside. And it's like, this is the ultimate Spider-Man side mission.
Sure.
And it's not hard. It's not conflict driven. It's just like the ultimate feel good Spider-Man side mission. And what they do, I'm so impressed.
I'm very excited to play those. And honestly though, I just was a bit like, I mean, I know we've got a Wolverine game coming out eventually, but like we have not had that many like jaw-droppingly good superhero games. You know what I mean? And I honestly, I was really wanting actually for a while there to play Arkham Origins, but that you can't buy it digitally. It's not digitally buyable, which was
Are you sure?
yes, I looked. I tried to buy it. It's like unavailable on the Xbox store.
Why don't you just? I mean, that's like $5.
I know.
To buy the physical version.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to, but it's just
It's
annoying.
not
But
bad. It's actually decent.
that's what I've heard. I've heard that's like got actually probably the best story and maybe not the best as good of gameplay in some ways, but that's fine. But yeah, so like I am right now. I'm just on a kick for. I'm really on a Batman kick. I've also been watching. There's a YouTube channel called Comics Explained. I don't know if you've ever watched his stuff.
Know about it.
But I've watched some of his just Batman comics that he's talked about. And just really he did his series on the Batman Earth One I guess graphic novel issues.
That's cool.
And it was cool to see because I've watched the show and obviously I've watched the movie adaptation and obviously Nolan's trilogy was based a lot around that. But it was cool to like see the inception of those things and all that kind of stuff.
It is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I was watching stuff from Infinity War and Endgame last night. Just mainly just watching Iron Man suit up. Honestly, I was just watching all the suit up scenes. Yeah, I mean, it's like we're this place again now where like we don't have a lot of the content because both companies have dried up. So we're just kind of like we were getting so much of it, but like not at amazing quality. And now we're in this weird like waiting period again where we have to go back and watch all our old stuff. Yep. All right, we did it. How can listeners write into us?
Listeners, write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you thought of season 2 of The House of the Dragon. Or maybe what you think of animated Batman movies or any animated superhero movies. I've been kind of hunting around for them. I've watched a lot of them. I've watched quite a few of the Justice League ones as well. So if there's a really good Marvel, DC, or else other animated movie that you want to point my way, write into bit.ly/241mail, and you can do that.
Yeah, listeners, fuck House of the Dragon. I want to know what kind of Marvel or DC shows you revisit when we're in a lull. We're not getting new content because we're spoiled.
That's good.
I tend to watch everything again over and over again and obsess over it. But right now I'm kind of on an Iron Man kick.
Okay.
And that's kind of where my allegiance lies at the moment. And so I would like to know what you are listening to, listener, or watching. Cool, Dan. I'm glad we did it. Again, next week, maybe we'll just do more of this kind of talk.
Sure.
Maybe I'll go back and watch some animated stuff so we can do it, or watch hacks. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
My name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.